The rain fell in merciless sheets that evening, blurring the city lights into a dull haze. People hurried past each other, umbrellas bumping, shoes splashing through puddles, faces hidden behind indifference. Among that rushing crowd stood a young woman, drenched, trembling, and holding a soaked cardboard sign that had begun to fall apart in her hands. The words written in shaky black marker were barely visible now, "Need help. Just one meal." She didn't shout, didn't beg, didn't move. She just stood there, her eyes hollow, her lips quivering as silent tears mingled with the rain. But no one stopped. Not a single person looked up long enough to see that she was crying not just from hunger, but from the unbearable weight of being invisible. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one good heart to change a life, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to MJ Kindness Moments. Because sometimes, one small act of compassion is all it takes to rewrite someone's story. Her name was Elena Brooks, once a bright, hopeful college student with dreams of becoming a teacher. She had come to the city 3 years ago with nothing but ambition and the belief that good things come to those who work hard. But life, as it often does, had other plans. A sudden accident took her parents, leaving her without family. A scammer posing as a landlord stole her savings. Then a series of bad jobs and cruel rejections followed, until she found herself sleeping in shelters and later on the streets. Every night she promised herself that tomorrow she would find a way out, but every tomorrow looked just like yesterday. People stopped noticing her. The world moved on. Shopkeepers frowned when she stood too close to their doors. Security guards told her to move along. Strangers crossed the street to avoid her. The only voices she heard were the ones in her mind whispering that maybe she no longer mattered. That night, as she stood by the intersection, she watched a mother holding her child's hand, hurrying across the street. The little boy stared at her curiously, but the mother tugged him away. Something inside Elena broke a little more. She wanted to scream, to ask the world why kindness had become such a rare language. But she had no strength left for words. The wind grew colder, and the rain heavier. Her body shivered uncontrollably. She turned to leave, hoping to find shelter under the bus stop canopy, when a car pulled up beside the curb. For a moment, she froze. People rarely stopped for her. The window rolled down slowly, and a man's voice called out, "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't answer. She had heard that question before, from people who didn't mean it. But something about his tone was different, gentle, real, almost hesitant. He stepped out, holding an umbrella over both of them. He looked to be in his 30s, wearing a simple coat, with kind eyes that didn't flinch at her appearance. "You're freezing," he said softly. "Come on, there's a coffee shop right there. Let's get you warm." Elena wanted to refuse. Pride, fear, and years of disappointment held her back. But her legs were weak, her stomach empty, and his voice, it carried a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Slowly, she nodded. Inside the small cafe, the scent of coffee and baked bread filled the air. The barista gave them a puzzled look, but the man smiled reassuringly and ordered 2 hot drinks and sandwiches. Elena sat at a corner table, her hands still trembling. He handed her the steaming cup and said, "I'm Nathan." She muttered her name quietly, not lifting her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt human again. The hot drink burned her throat slightly, but it also melted away the numbness in her chest. Nathan didn't ask invasive questions. He just listened. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked, but she told him everything, the accident, the betrayal, the loneliness. She expected judgment, but instead, he simply nodded and said, "You didn't deserve that." Those words broke her completely. No one had said that to her before. She covered her face and sobbed, right there in the middle of the cafe. People turned to look, but Nathan didn't care. He stayed with her, letting her cry until the tears turned into silence. Over the next few days, Nathan met her again. He found her at the same bus stop, brought her food, and helped her find temporary shelter. He learned that she loved reading and once tutored children. Something about her resilience, even after everything, inspired him deeply. He wasn't a rich man, but he believed that small kindnesses could create big changes. He used his contacts to help her apply for part-time work at a local library. The first day she walked in, nervous and unsure, she looked nothing like the woman who once stood crying in the rain. Her clothes were still simple, but her eyes had a spark again. At the library, she found peace. Surrounded by books and quiet smiles, she started rebuilding her life one day at a time. The children who came to read adored her, and she soon became their favorite storyteller. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a burden, not as a lost soul, but as someone who mattered. Nathan visited often. Sometimes just to check in, sometimes to talk about life. Their bond deepened, not romantic at first, but rooted in gratitude and understanding. He never treated her like someone to be pitied. He saw her as someone brave, someone who had survived when most would have given up. One evening, as the sun set through the library windows, Elena stood near the shelves, lost in thought. Nathan walked up quietly and asked what she was thinking about. She smiled faintly and said, about how one moment can change everything. About how a stranger's kindness can make you believe in tomorrow again. Nathan smiled back, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet pride, a deep warmth. "You changed everything for yourself," he said. "I just stopped long enough to see you." Those words stayed with her. Months passed, and Elena's life began to truly transform. She enrolled in online courses again, determined to finish her teaching degree. The library offered her a permanent position. She moved into a small apartment, paid for by her own efforts. Her past didn't vanish overnight, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it became a story, a painful but powerful reminder of what she had overcome. Every week, she volunteered at a local outreach program for homeless women, standing under the same kind of streetlights that once saw her broken. Whenever she saw someone sitting alone, ignored and invisible, she stopped. She knew that feeling too well. And in those moments, she became the very person she once needed, the person Nathan had been for her. One rainy evening, almost exactly a year after their first meeting, Elena saw a young girl sitting by the corner with her head buried in her arms. She recognized the same trembling shoulders, the same silent desperation. Without hesitation, she walked up, placed her umbrella over the girl, and said softly, "Come on, there's a cafe right there. Let's get you warm." As they walked together through the rain, Elena glanced up at the sky and whispered a quiet thank you, to life, to fate, to the stranger who had once stopped for her tears. Sometimes the most profound stories of kindness don't begin with grand gestures or wealth, they begin with noticing. One human heart seeing another. One act of compassion that ripples across lives like sunlight through clouds. Nathan didn't just give her food or shelter, he gave her back her dignity, her faith in goodness, and her belief that she was worth saving. And that belief changed everything. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to MJ Kindness Moments. Let's keep spreading stories that remind the world that humanity isn't lost, it's just waiting for someone to stop and care. Before you go, comment below, kindness still matters. Because when you do, you remind others that hope is never truly gone, it's just waiting for one compassionate soul to bring it back to life. Elena's story is a mirror of countless unseen lives, the ones we pass by, the ones who just need one person to stop. She was ignored, forgotten, and left to fade, but one stranger's kindness reignited her entire world. And if one act could do that for her, imagine what yours could do for someone else. Because at the end of every dark road, there's always a light, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a moment, sometimes it's you. And that's the beauty of kindness, it doesn't just save others. It saves us.